Testing. Testing. traction. We were up to 35. I think it's really more the angle.
I know. It's. Gotta figure that out.
I'm also, I'm a growing boy. I could continue. What if I could be like 7 feet tall by the end of the year.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the morning market briefing. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. Boys, big plans for Jan 6?
No.
No.
Nothing for
Fight
me.
the power.
Nobody's getting rowdy. Nobody's getting rowdy. 5-year anniversary of the darkest day in American history, some would say. It is crazy that was 5 years ago.
It seems longer than that and shorter than that at the same time.
I mean, more American service people died on January 6th than taking Maduro.
That's a great point. Nobody's talking about that.
No one's talking about that. Ashley Babbitt, R.I.P. to our queen, trying to break through a window, gunned down in the prime of her life. Sad.
Babbitt down.
I mean, I don't, not to besmirch the dead, but I bet she was a tough hang, if I had to guess.
Yeah, probably not the person you want to get cornered by at the bar.
No. But, patriot.
Yep.
Takes all kinds.
It takes all kinds. Lots to talk about today. Most notably, Alpha Mayo.
Yeah,
I thought this was a Ben Nye typo initially, but it's Alpha.
It's a family of open AI models. So NVIDIA provided its keynote yesterday. Jensen Huang was out there. And basically they've essentially endorsed what Tesla is doing with its self-driving autonomy. So instead of having, the Waymo cars with all the LiDAR on top going round and round, it looks like you're a ship out on the ocean. What Alpha Mayo does is it is really trying to reason through like a human would think in traffic. And he actually provided a video of a vehicle using NVIDIA software and hardware to navigate San Francisco at night, like downtown San Francisco. And it's pretty impressive what it can do. And you add on top of that all of its models that it has in terms of its digital twins. So you can simulate a lot of driving without actually having to drive and potentially get in accidents. And all of a sudden, NVIDIA, what they've been doing for the last 8 years is now starting to come to the forefront. And this is really the genesis of the what he calls physical AI, which is bringing artificial intelligence into the real world that we interact with on a daily basis. It's pretty impressive what they're doing. I'm curious how this impacts things like Tesla, Uber, Lyft, if they're going to use what NVIDIA has, if they're going to build off of it. I think it's going to be some combination of all of it. But what it does is it more firmly entrenches NVIDIA as the chip vendor of choice. And, when we heard a presentation at Invest for Kids back in 2016, 10 years ago now, autonomous vehicles was the thing. It was the thesis behind NVIDIA, and now it's coming to fruition.
Good.
I was going to say, the tough part is that how much reasoning-based driving do you think you're doing? I mean, there are plenty of times where I get home and I thought, man, I just completely zoned out the entire drive home. And everyone else on the road is doing that simultaneously.
I think what it does is it explains, it's kind of uses the deep seek. It explains how it's thinking about things. And then, in order to do that, that's way, rather than just using LiDAR react, it is actually trying to think about what is the best optimal way to go around this pedestrian who's opening, or someone who's opening a car on the side of the road who's parallel parked.
The homeless guy who's pooping. I mean, this is San Francisco.
Yeah, it's very specific.
How do we avoid these hypodermic needles in the street?
Things like that, because to Jensen Huang's point, the big thing is you got to deal with the tail events with these
the pooping.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
with
Rooster tails.
With any of the autonomous vehicles. So, which means you have to deal with those rare circumstances that you don't really come across on a daily basis. You're like, how do I actually deal with this construction zone that really shouldn't be there, or someone who stopped on the side of the road, or
it pulls up and it just spits out toilet paper,
or half of a road that's shut down for the gobble jog, for example. So all things like this
Story of my life.
are things that for self-driving really to take off will need to be solved, and NVIDIA's trying to solve that.
Yeah, I'm curious if I'm Tesla, am I coming out and saying, we've already done this?
I mean, the LiDAR thing with Waymo, it's interesting they're not doing that because it seems like there's that massive failure. I guess it was a week or so ago when the power went out. There's a brownout in San Francisco, and it killed all the LiDAR and the Waymos, and they all just stopped. And their whole thing is that LiDAR doesn't need light because it's just because they're using radar and not actual cameras, and that it didn't work when the power went out. So, short Waymo, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious, to your point, Ben, earlier, just to see how. I don't know that I anticipate Tesla, Waymo, whoever to say, yeah, we're going to build upon this. I think there's going to be some kind of stake planted into the ground saying, no, we've already accounted for this, or we're doing something similar, or we're doing something better.
I agree. I think it'll be more, does Uber and Lyft go after it?
Yeah.
And say, hey, this is going to enable us to compete with Tesla robotaxis or Waymo taxis. And I think from that perspective, I think it could. Honestly, if I'm an Uber driver right now, I'm looking for another job. Maybe not immediately, but it's going to be.
I got bad news for you.
It's a tough time. Tough time out there.
You're going to have to get some paperwork.
Yeah. Any other big takeaways do you feel from NVIDIA? I mean, obviously, the whole CES event goes through the week, but NVIDIA certainly top of mind.
Yeah, there was no commentary on end demand. I think that based on everything that I'm hearing, end demand is very strong with China coming really back into the market in a big way. They're digging up H200 chips to sell to China in a massive scale. They're digging up even older generations of chips than that. So I think that is all good news for NVIDIA. And then they also announced the Rubin chip, which is the next generation on top of the Blackwell chip, which was only just came into production in the fall of last year. So the Rubin chip was announced earlier than expected. Usually these announcements happen at NVIDIA's annual GTC conference that happens in March. And basically they say has 5 innovations, includes the latest networking technology, more memory, as well as an NVIDIA Vera CPU. So they have their own CPU now. So this used to be something that ran on x86 architecture from Intel, but now is much more democratized as Intel kind of gave up that lead. And essentially what it allows you to do, the big takeaway is that you can do 10x the token generation for the same cost. So I think that this is another feather in the cap for the people who say, hey, power is going to kind of solve itself. Yep. It's not stopping deals or anything like that, but I think that the chip progress is substantial, and what's impressive here is that it's not just a annual cadence. It honestly seems a little bit faster than that.
Yeah.
The fact that it's being unveiled 2 months earlier than usual.
Microchip, meanwhile, bumping guidance up again. I mean, they relatively recently came out and guided toward the high end of the range, but now seeing revenue in the 1.185 range.
This is a derivative of the physical AI. So with all the factory automation, with all the robotics, you need sensors, and you need the ability to process analog signals. And Microchip does that, as well as one that we own, which is Analog Devices, which is really the leader and has the most pricing power in the industry. Microchip and Texas Instruments are a little bit lagging in terms of what technologies they have. So they have they're a lot more commoditized than Analog Devices, but this should help our investment in ADI as well. But they say they continue to experience a fairly broad-based recovery in most of our end markets. Our bookings activity was, quote, very strong in the December quarter. Despite a holiday-filled quarter, our March quarter starting backlog started out much better than that for the December quarter. So this is all good news and again, it's kind of part of investment in productivity. You need chips to do that.
This is a major divergence, but I was curious if there was any intel on how NVIDIA named their chips. And I did a quick grok, but Blackwell, named after David Harold Blackwell, an American mathematician and statistician known for contributions to game theory, probability, and information theory. Rubin, named after Vera Florence Cooper Rubin, American astronomer whose work provided key evidence for dark matter in the galaxy.
Yeah, so the interesting thing here was that he said, and Jensen Huang went, I mean, it was probably about an hour and a half presentation. About 5 minutes he spent on talking about exactly this.
Oh, really?
And it was kind of interesting. I'm not an astrophysicist by any means, but essentially
Not yet.
What she observed was that planets and things farther from the center of gravity went around or went in orbit as fast as those closest to it, which kind of defies traditional physics thought. But so what she posited is there has to be something else that is altering the speeds there, and that something else is dark matter.
It's interesting that they're using their new driving technology to observe dark matter in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Bringing it all together. It's smart.
I want them to deviate on the naming. I think the next chip should be like the Chestnut for Joey Chestnut. Just like ditch the science theme.
This is our new chip. His name is Gary.
Vistra Energy buying Cogentrix, picking up some gas power generating assets. Been not a crazy price, I didn't think. $4 billion deal. We've seen crazier.
I think with the need for power and especially if I'm Meta or I'm one of these other companies, why on earth would I build a spec nuclear reactor when I can buy gas generation assets at a 7x EBITDA? And I'm doing the latter.
Yep.
It's lower risk, it's cheaper. So I think that we're going to probably see more of this. But Vistra Energy is an unregulated utility in Texas.
Bad boys. And Centrus getting a $2.7 billion award to get 2 nuclear fuel things back rolling.
Yeah. So we'll see. They want to enrich uranium domestically because right now we rely on Russian.
Not ideal,
uranium.
I'd say.
So, yeah, I think it's probably a smart strategic investment by the Department of Energy.
ISM Manufacturing came in basically in line, it seemed like, Ben. But we did see, a little bit of relief on pricing, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of relief.
Not noteworthy, I wouldn't argue. But
No, and I was hoping for a little bit more of a pickup on new orders after the government shutdown ended, frankly. And we just didn't see that. New orders went from 47.4 to 47.7, but anything below 50 is contractionary. So it's really not a great number. I'd like to see more of that, some more improvement here in 2026. But the commentary from a lot of the respondents was just kind of downbeat. They were saying mixed results, has not been a great year. Consumer spending is down. Trough conditions continue. And then they list out a number of issues. They say interest rates, tariffs, low oil commodity pricing, and limited housing starts. So it's just kind of a
grab bag of excuses.
Yeah. All the things we complain about.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting seeing this, that quote specifically from the machinery space. Tough conditions continue. They reference interest rates, tariffs, all that, but how we were largely impacted by customer issues, that's the business, folks. Strong customer, good for business. Customer issues, not ideal. Student loan wage garnishment is coming, folks.
Let's go.
So folks that are in default by more than 270 days and have not made a payment, that whole payment's coming due for defaulted borrowers.
Yeah, if
it's gonna hurt.
If you haven't contacted them and you haven't made a payment, and you're 300, and they'll give you kind of a 90-day grace period after you're in default after those 270 days. But at that point,
there's only one free year of this, folks.
Yep. At that point, they can take up to 15%. It's just like an unpaid tax bill. They can take up to 15% of your wages straight off the top. They can just go into your bank account, take it, and they can basically take your entire tax refund. So even if your monthly payment is, say you have $10,000 in debt, even if your monthly payment is $100 and you're $1,200 behind, as soon as you hit those 270 days, you're in default, and they can basically call the entire loan. So you get a tax refund of $3,000. They're taking it all.
Well, it's only going to impact about 3 million people.
Yeah, joke's on them, though, because that women's study degree from the University of Washington is not going to be getting $1,200 a month to cover that monthly payment. So it's going to be a while.
Tough time for the Huskies out there.
I could have gone University of Oregon. Ethnomusicology degree. There's got to be a number of those out there. People spending hundreds of thousands of dollars spinning their wheels on the government dime. It's time to pay the piper.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Tom, what have we seen in bond world?
I mean, not a lot. Rates have been very stable recently. Sitting about a 4.17 on the 10 years, so I would say right along in line with what I would consider fair value right now. I think that there's a lot to be said about the long bond. We were doing a little internal discussion yesterday about starting to really move duration out, because if you look at the tilt between the 10s, 20s, so the difference between the 10-year Treasury and the 20-year Treasury, the yield curve gets very steep. I mean, the 20-year Treasury right now is sitting at a 4.80. So you'll get roughly, call it, 60 basis points difference between the 2s and 10s. I mean, if you get right there in that 15-year mark, I mean, on munis especially, you're starting to see some real value. I mean, you can get over 100% of Treasuries and tax-free. You can either play it by buying low coupons and getting a lot of duration in hopes that rates fall, or you pay high coupon and try and lock in on that yield for a long time. There's a lot of functionality there, and we're looking back. If you look back at the last big cut cycle after the dot-com bubble burst in 2001, we saw a pretty significant steepening like this, and all through 2002, rates were pretty stable. There wasn't a lot going on, but in 2003, we saw the 30-year bond drop 120 basis points, which if you basically do the reverse Silicon Valley, you're looking at massive double-digit gains on long bonds. And so I think that using that as a place to sort of think about bonds right now, we've got a lot of stability. We've got still very high yields. The highest yields are kind of in that 10 to 20-year range. You can get good tax equivalency there. And then you can just kind of say, hey, it doesn't really matter what rates are going to do, but they're probably not going to go up a lot because we're not seeing these massive inflation prints that are pushing yields way up. We're not seeing a lot of people continuing to cling to the false god of 4% inflation, 6% inflation from the University of Michigan that they worshipped so heavily about a year ago. And so I think what we can see there is say, this is a good opportunity. Rates are stable. We can lock in for 4.5 tax-free if we want it. We can get some 5s on corporates if we want them. We're still seeing pretty decent value in mortgages. And then if we see a repeat of the 2001 and 2003 scenario, we can basically spend the next year looking to set the bond portfolio for the next 20 years. And so that's kind of our marching order there, but I think there's a lot of value there, and the risk level is flipped in your favor in a big way on the long bond, I think. And for some reason, everyone seems to think we're going back to 6%, but I just don't see it, at least not in the short term.
Higgs, I have a question for Tom here in a second, but we need to have a recurring segment called Fed Stakes, and it'll just be a stake, like stake graphic. But in terms of
maybe we eat one.
In terms of Fed Stakes, we're right locked at 40-40 Hassett and Warsh right now. I was thinking about it, Tom, and I'm curious. Does Warsh actually have more flexibility to be more aggressive on lowering rates than Hassett because he's less connected to the administration? Like,
it's possible because he doesn't get blamed for being a Trump,
right?
But I don't think Hassett cares, does he?
That's fair.
He's pretty dweeby. He seems like the kind of guy who's never tried to conform to being cool. That's certainly my read on him. Not a hip fella, if you will.
On the YouTube channel right now, if you're watching, subscribe, get the alerts on, all that good stuff. I do want to point out, I guess because I'm watching a live video, there's other live content that is showing up on that right panel for me. Right now, we're outperforming Mount Southington ski area live stream. There's 2 people watching, but we are getting our teeth kicked in by a broadcast from notable Titan of media, Cozy Jazz Courtyard.
I'm getting that one too.
Cozy Jazz with Romantic Garden Evening. Their live stream has 429 people on it right now. We got to take them down. I don't know how to like recruit those people, but Hicks, if you could figure that out, there's no reason that Cozy Jazz with Romantic Garden Evening should be outperforming the morning market briefing.
Are you also seeing that activate all 7 chakras, get rid of all bad energy?
I'm not seeing that one.
654 watching.
There's
so.
793 people watching peaceful Christmas music for relaxation. I mean, what are we doing, folks? It's January.
That's a great point.
But yeah, the live content out there, I think we're going to climb up these rankings some. But we appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you subscribe.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Seth's looking great.
It's coming together.
We're getting there. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Be back tomorrow. Talk to you soon.